Attention, armchair quarterbacks and shower thought GMs. It's time for this week's episode of SportsBall with Mike Maharrey and Alan Mosley.
Do you remember what this show's about?
I have no idea.
Okay.
Was I supposed to know that beforehand?
Well, I mean, you've got to have some material prepared because I've only got like 5 minutes.
Oh, this is going to be about a 7-minute show.
This is time for your Type 5 right here. I'm so glad Clay's here to hear us McMahon Redskins. Welcome back to SportsBall, everybody. I am your host, Alan Mosley, joined as always by my co-host and the King Jax. It says it right there on his hat. It's Mike Maharrey. Mike, how are you doing?
I think I'm doing pretty good. How are you doing, buddy?
Didn't it just warm your cockles to hear that intro music?
It does. I was grooving to it, man.
Yeah, it does. It feels good. I mean, one could hypothesize that we wouldn't have made a lot of sports balls lately because we're just lazy bastards, and there's some truth to that.
Yeah,
but a lot of it's because there hasn't been a lot of sports.
No, I mean, I guess if you want to cover European soccer, we've had that for a while, and NASCAR.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There has been some UFC, and I do like watching MMA. But I mean, that's for me. I mean, that's literally been it. I'm not even listing examples. That was the whole list.
I've seen a lot of old NHL playoff games. Every time I go down to the rink, they've got the NHL Network on, and they're like replaying every NHL playoff game that there's ever been. It seems like so that's always kind of fun.
I happened to be flipping channels the other day, and I saw they were throwing a replay of, I think it was Georgia and Vanderbilt in college football. But I didn't quite understand what the angle was, because in my mind I was thinking if you're going to replay a random game, it would have been like an instant classic or like a double overtime thriller. It was just a game where Georgia won by 40.
Yeah.
I was like,
they're digging down to the bottom of the barrel for replays when you start seeing Vandy show up. Next thing you know, it'll be UK football.
Oh, well, I mean,
to all my friends in Lexington.
Well, they were really good there when they put the wide receiver in at QB and just said,
yeah, right.
Screw it. Speaking of him, is he ever gonna get to play wide receiver again?
I don't know what they're gonna do with him. He got drafted. I can't remember by whom.
I don't remember either. This is what happens when you don't do sports ball for like 3 months.
Right? This is the kind of exciting and breathtaking information you come to expect from sports ball.
Exactly. But we're back today, and we're endeavoring to get back into the regular sports ball groove. So we got to dig to the bottom of the barrel to find sports. But I think some sports are getting ready to come back, at least in limited cases, at least in limited trials, or in the case of maybe football. It's still a little ways down the road, so I think that they're cautiously optimistic that they're going to go on as normal. But you, being the hockey expert on the show, what happened or what's going to happen with the NHL playoffs?
We are going to have NHL playoffs starting August 1st. The games have been scheduled. It's kind of weird. They're going to be playing in the bubble, because we have the new normal of COVID. And every time I hear the term new normal, I cringe because there's absolutely nothing normal about any of this. But they're going to be playing in Edmonton and Toronto. So the Western Conference will be in Edmonton. The Eastern Conference will be in Toronto. And they basically taken the top 4 seeds get a bye, and then they're doing a play-in. I think it's a 5-game series with the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 teams. So basically you have a 12-team playoff on each conference, 24 teams total. And the top 4 are going to do a little round robin thing in the beginning for seeding, and then the other teams will have a play-in. So they're going to do it all in those arenas and no fans.
Yeah.
But at least it'll be hockey, so it'll be cool. I'm excited about it. But I was thinking, here's the thing that's really perplexing about this. How do you even handicap this? You can go back and look at the standings last year, and you've got some favorites, and the talent hasn't changed. But I mean, these guys haven't skated in like 4 months. You know what you call 4 months in hockey?
What's that?
It's the off season.
Yeah.
So I mean,
exactly.
basically, they've had an entire off season where a lot of these guys haven't even been able to skate. It's not like basketball where you can run out to the outside and go jog or, shoot hoops in your driveway, you have to have ice. And
Yeah.
most of the ice rinks were shut down. So it'll be interesting. I think one of the big factors is going to be injuries and conditioning, especially in the early rounds, until they get back into game shape. I fear that there's going to be a lot of injuries. In fact, Tampa Bay's captain already has a lower body injury. They say he'll be ready for the tournament, but it kind of makes you nervous. So I have no idea. I think this is truly any team could win this.
Yeah. Well, I've got an interesting philosophical hypothetical question for you. Before we do that, we're actually going to prove to people that this is literally and not figuratively live. So I want to say hello to Clay Davis, Amanda Bowers, Jeff Johnson, David Wilimowski, and Daniel Snowden are all in the chat right now. Most of them are just yelling each other and making throw up signs. So it's pretty textbook sports ball chat.
Right? Yeah, that sounds about right.
So I've got a question for you. So you talked about kind of this off year format that we're going to have for the playoffs. So whether it is the NHL playoffs, whether it's the NBA season starting back up, or any other league, do you think that the ultimate conclusion of any of these seasons and whatever winners are crowned get an automatic asterisk? And let me I'll wait for your answer, but I'll give you just a really quick summary of of my line of thought. On the one hand, yes, because this is not normal. This is not how a normal season would be done. The last 100 years before this weren't done like this. On the other hand, the winner who wins did everything that they could do to win and beat everyone else, and they had no say in the new normal.
Right.
So why then would they be cursed with an asterisk more than anyone else?
Yeah, okay, so I don't really know what the NBA format is, to be honest with you. That's some good prepared sports ball action there for you. But I think for the NHL, I think in a way there is an asterisk in the fact that, like I said, I mean, you've basically had an off season. It's unusual that you're going to have every team going into this playoff completely healthy, unless you have some injuries in the practices leading up to. But on the other hand, they are doing the full normal NHL playoff. It's kind of unusual having these play-in teams, but once you get to that, it's going to be the normal 4-7 game series. So you've still got to win all of those games to win a Stanley Cup. I think there's a lot more uncertainty again with, not having had the wear and tear of the season. How are they going to react to no fans in the stands? All of these things that are the new normal that's not normal. On the other hand, if you look at something like baseball, I think baseball definitely gets an asterisk. You're doing a 60-game season.
Yeah.
That's a huge difference in the format. In a 60-game baseball team, almost every team in baseball at some point is going to have like a 15-game slide. I mean, you could have the best team in Major League Baseball get off to a slow start in this 60-game season and not make the playoffs.
Yeah.
So I think in that sense, when you're starting a whole season and changing the whole season format, definitely, well, not definitely, but I think that deserves an asterisk more than, say, the NBA or the NHL that basically got through their regular season. The playoffs are being seeded based on the season, and despite the differences that we'll see, I think there's still some continuity between the Stanley Cup, this year and the Stanley Cup last year.
I'm not going to put you on the spot. We'll wait until the 1st of August before we do our NHL playoff preview, which, by the way, feels weird, by the way. In August 1st, we're going to do an NHL playoff preview. But before we move on, it's time for us to do our favorite hockey-inspired segment. It's time to fire a puck to the head.
I am going to fire a puck to the head, but to do this, we're going to go to NASCAR.
Fair enough. Of course. Why wouldn't we?
Now, I think probably everybody has heard about the whole Bubba Wallace thing. You've heard about the Bubba Wallace thing, right? And so if people out there have been under a rock, Bubba Wallace is an African-American NASCAR driver and went to Talladega, and there was a noose on his garage, which, as it turns out, was just somebody's clever way of making a pull down for the door, and it had been there for like months and months and months. And he made a big deal out of it, and and it's tempting to fire a puck to the head at Bubba Wallace because I'm honestly a little bit skeptical that they didn't know that this was a door pull. I can totally see somebody saying, "Oh, this is a good way to bring a little publicity," and I wouldn't put that past anybody. But I can't say that definitively. Where I can definitely fire a puck to the head, though, is the media that continued to play this thing up as a racial thing, even after the investigation revealed that this thing's been hanging on this door for months and months and months, and there was no way that anybody could have ever known Bubba Wallace was going to be in that garage. You still got the headlines. You still got the narrative that there's somehow this evil streak of racism in NASCAR because of this incident, and that's just irresponsible to me. Because at some point you have to say, "Oh, this was a big mistake," and it means nothing. But nobody was willing to do that. They had to continue with this stupid narrative, and it annoyed me. So therefore, all of the media people who continued with that get a puck to the head.
Well said. That was exactly the line of thinking in a few weeks ago's It's Too Late episode that was titled #Fake News. You'll remember. So and it's totally the sensationalizing of it. Anything for likes and clicks. Which, by the way, go to Phony Boat on Facebook. Give us a like. Yeah.
Should I say something really controversial now, or are we saving that for later in the show?
How is the show not very controversial?
True.
With that said, speaking of very controversial, Clay Davis, I'm sorry. The NFL team you're a fan of, as you knew it, will be no more.
Yep.
The Washington Redskins have finally capitulated, and they are looking into changing the logo and name of the franchise. The Washington Redskins will be no more, but it'll be, I presume, Washington something, but it'll be a new logo and new name.
I think it should be the Washington Package Deliverer, since I really have a feeling that the big impetus behind this was FedEx.
Sure. Well, I've always been a favorite of the Washington Potomac Drainage Basin indigenous persons.
There you go.
I've always loved that. That's been my favorite.
I'd love to see the logo for that. Too bad Jeff Stewart's not listening. I bet he could draw something up for us.
It made me people have already kind of covered the name change of the Redskins, and I will say really quickly, for one, I'm not a big proponent of the name change at all. I think you just should never capitulate to the mob, and I think it's always a very vocal minority of people that want it changed. By the way, I think you'll have to search far and wide to find a big group of Native Americans who want it changed.
Mm-hmm.
I think you can find a lot of white liberals who want it changed.
Right.
They're everywhere.
Yeah.
But you'll find people who typically live in DC who think that it's not kosher. But I actually was reading an interesting thing where they were talking about that the original logo was designed by a Native American.
Oh, really?
So they actually had a Native American design the original logo, and it was a thing of pride for them, because I mean this is a major American institution. It's worth a lot of money, and they're reaching out to the indigenous people to have a say in the name, and they picked one to be the designer. So it's kind of like Aunt Jemima 2.0, that you take what was actually a wholesome story but somehow isn't up to snuff by 2020 sentiment, and you erase it. But when you erase it, you also erase the story, which is a shame.
Yeah, there's a couple of thoughts that spring to mind. We had a similar thing. I guess it was probably back in I can't remember if it was the 90s or the early O's. This thing comes around, every so often.
Sure.
And there was a big controversy with the Florida State Seminoles, and we got the same big push. And fortunately for Florida State, the Seminole Nation is probably one of the best organized tribes in the United States, and they've extremely strong, kind of still have a government of sorts. Mm-hmm. And they came out strongly and said, "No, look, this is an honor to us. The guy that comes in on the horse with the spear actually is a Seminole," and they pretty much slapped it down. So I think that's interesting. But you mentioned this whole capitulating to the mob, and the problem with it is it's never enough.
Yes.
And I've already seen that there are calls to change the name of the Texas Rangers baseball team. I have no idea why the Texas Rangers are racist. I didn't go and read it. I'm assuming that they probably helped round up slaves at some point in the early 1800s. And And then I saw today that the North Carolina Tar Heels are also apparently on the chopping block. And again, have no idea what's wrong with the name Tar Heels. And that's what's so crazy about it. People act all offended. Oh my gosh, I'm so offended. Half the people don't even know they're supposed to be offended until somebody tells them.
Yes. So in that vein, I don't think we have time in our limited runtime to run through the whole league. What would be your new politically correct name for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers?
Oh gosh, we need to go to. I think probably you need to play it safe. So I'm going to say the Tampa Bay Manatees.
Tampa Bay Manatees,
Which I think is fitting because manatees are soft and cuddly and don't do a whole lot, and that's a whole lot like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers football team. So,
well, I mean they're the Buccaneers now, so if you're going to try to keep the identity, then you need to be something like the Tampa Bay Undocumented Shipping Professionals.
See, I was underthinking it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, mine's easy. The Dallas Cowboys are offensive because that's gender exclusive. So they're going to be the Dallas Cowpersons.
That is easy. But what do you do like with the Oakland Raiders?
The Oakland Raiders?
Yeah.
Let me think. Because we've already used undocumented shipping professionals. Because the Raiders and Buccaneers are the same thing. So, actually, you know what? They do that in college. So let's just have them be the same name. I mean, how many? How many Tigers are in college? I mean, there's multiple Tigers in the SEC.
Yeah. What? There's 3, right? You got LSU, Missouri, and Auburn.
I actually forgot about Missouri. I was going to say 2. You know more about SEC than I do.
But the whole Auburn thing is a little bit confusing because are they the Tigers or are they the War Eagles?
Well, they're definitely the Tigers. It's just when you see a tiger, you yell War Eagle, and the tiger won't attack you.
Which is only something people in Alabama can come up with.
Well, because there's so many tigers in the wild near Auburn, Alabama, that's.
Right.
See,
right.
We're getting way off topic here, but this is exactly why the Tennessee Volunteers are so much better than teams like the Auburn Tigers. Because there's no regional identity to Auburn Tigers because there's no tigers in Auburn. But the Tennessee Volunteers is the Volunteer State, and they got.
I'm pretty sure that's offensive.
Yeah,
the color is certainly offensive.
I mean, at least with the Kentucky Wildcats, like there are Wildcats in Kentucky. They don't call themselves the Kentucky Siberian Tigers because that would not be accurate. I can live with Wildcats, even though there are also a lot of Wildcats.
There are,
but I can't. I mean, at least the Dallas Cowboys, it's Texas. Why are the Tampa Bay Buccaneers the Buccaneers?
Well, pirates. I mean, there were a lot of pirates. There were a lot of pirates in that area.
When?
Haven't you ever heard of Jose Gaspar?
Okay, when since the founding of America has there been a lot of pirates around Tampa?
Well, when since the founding of America has there been a lot of pirates anywhere?
Somalia.
Well, there you go.
That's right.
There we go. We can have the Las Vegas Somalians.
That's true.
Which I think I called them Oakland before. They're going to be Oakland forever to me, just like the Chargers will always be San Diego.
I mean, I called the Titans the Houston Oilers for a long time after they came to Tennessee. But you know what? I think one thing that kind of reasserts your identity or your new branding is success. Until you have success, you're just the old team. When you have success, then the community, comes around you, and now you're their team. You know what I'm saying? Like the Titans were actually the Tennessee Oilers for a while because they didn't have any brand, and they were in Memphis for a while, and then they played at Vanderbilt for a while before they had their own stadium. And I think people were excited to have pro football, but they also were like 5-11, so no one cared too much. But then all of a sudden, when they got like Aaron McNair, Eddie George, Jay Wycheck, Dylan and Mason, and they were going to a Super Bowl. Then all of a sudden it was, we love the Titans.
It's been our team the whole time.
Yeah, the whole time. I was here the whole time, you guys.
Yeah.
Speaking of what's always been on SportsBall, one of our favorite segments. Time for the LP Team of the Week. I love that.
That's awesome.
We got to have more of those. I'll tell you who the LP Team of the Week is. It's the Atlanta Braves. The Atlanta Braves are the LP Team of the Week. The Washington Redskins were the low-hanging fruit, but it's the Atlanta Braves. Now, the Atlanta Braves have not capitulated to say that they are looking at changing their name and brand,
Mm-hmm.
but they are looking at getting rid of the chop. To me, this just kind of goes back to your point of today it'll be the chop, and when that satisfies exactly no one, it'll be the Braves.
Yep.
That's what's going. So either do nothing or just go ahead and throw it all in the trash can because you can't possibly make everyone happy, and in an attempt to do so, you're going to make no one happy.
I've got a good name for the Braves. Let's call them the Atlanta Shermans.
Ooh. I see some suggestions in chat, by the way. So we've got Andrew Avery says that it'll be the Washington Redacted, and their logo will just be a black line.
I love it.
There's the Washington Swamp Monsters.
Yeah.
Jeff Johnson says the Swashbucklers. But that's violent, though, Jeff.
Yeah.
Daniel says the Compton Crack Dealers. Now, okay, Jeff Johnson has a good one. If they're going to go to Vegas, it'll be the Vegas Polecats because of the stripper pole, you know.
Yeah, I like it.
I think that's what we're going to call them now on this program.
But is that sexist?
Well, I mean, you can be a male.
I get confused because on one hand it could be sexist because it's objectifying women, but on the other hand it could be feminist because it's women asserting them. So I don't know.
I mean, it could be sexist because you're objectifying women or men, and it could also be sexist because you're excluding women.
So I was being totally sexist there.
Yeah, and you were discriminating. This is why you didn't get to write the show right there. Because they'll take us off the air, Mike.
I know. Here comes the mob.
We're running out of time, so it's time to get on our solemn face. Time for In Memoriam, where we remember a player, a team, a coach, whoever. Sporting life was cut tragically short. Mike, who are you remembering this week?
Well, I'm going to remember several teams. The Buffalo Sabres, the New Jersey Devils, the Anaheim Ducks, the Los Angeles Kings, the San Jose Sharks, the Ottawa Senators, and the Detroit Red Wings.
Ooh.
None of which will be participating in the expanded NHL playoffs.
It just goes to show we have to draw the line somewhere, and where we drew it was right above your team.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what? I'm actually going to remember Dak Prescott. You know, we talked all the way back when there was still sports. We talked about how our boy Dak Prescott was looking at maybe getting a franchise tag because he hadn't gotten a new contract yet.
Right.
You know what? It's July 15th. Our boy Dak Prescott still hasn't got a new contract yet.
Oh, boy.
So with players like Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City getting, what, $500 million contract?
Oh, my gosh. Isn't that crazy?
Which, hey, more power to him. He did just win the Super Bowl.
He did?
Our man Dak looking at a little bit less money. And by a little bit, I mean he's currently looking at $0 money.
He'll end up in the Jameis Winston, Cam Newton camp making, what, like $1 million?
Yeah, well, he'll replace Brady in Tampa Bay when Brady finally croaks. I know you're looking forward to that.
Yeah. Talk about it. Tampa Bay can't have nice things. You know, you have the Brady, you got Gronk, you know, everybody's excited. They're selling out season tickets, and they're not going to be able to have all the fans in the stands. That's so Tampa Bay.
I like how I slowly prod you throughout the episode so that we can turn this into a Tampa Bay Rage segment. Right when we're heading into the outro of the program.
Yeah. Well, just consider that my final thought.
That's your final thought is
yes.
that Tampa Bay finally has a product to watch, but no one can go see it.
Right. And Tampa Bay cannot have nice things.
Tampa Bay can't have nice things. Who was the last really big, like, celebrity free agent signing that Tampa Bay got before Brady? Like, was a huge star somewhere else and then came to Tampa Bay?
Oh, gosh. Now I can't think of his freaking name. This is horrible. Wide receiver. Well, I remember back in the day it was Keyshawn Johnson. That was a big deal.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
But more recently,
how'd that work out?
He was all right. I mean, he was there. Was he there the Super Bowl? Yeah, I think he was there the Super Bowl. No, he wasn't there the Super. I don't know. I can't even remember. That was 10 years ago. But who is the wide receiver that? Well, I guess you could go and you could look at I can't remember his name either. Never mind.
So look forward to a future episode of Sports Ball when Tampa Bay signs Randy Moss out of retirement.
Yeah, there
Catching
you go.
touchdowns from Tom Brady.
There you go.
Guys, thank you for listening for another episode of Sports Ball. You think we'll do one next week?
I say let's do it.
I say we're going to keep doing Sports Ball.
I'm back. We're back in the saddle, back in the sports ball mode, and we'll start seeing sports. Well, next week we'll get to run down all of the people that got hurt in the NFL or NHL training camps.
Guys, thank you so much, and we will see you next week.
You've been listening to Sports Ball with Mike Maharrey and Alan Mosley. You can follow us on Facebook and leave comments, suggestions. Just go to @SportsBall Podcast. That's @SportsBall Podcast on Facebook. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you again next time.